Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center, or BCNC. Welcome to our Boston site. We have a building behind me full of children who are very excited that you are all here, including the mayor. BCNC has been serving the Asian and immigrant communities for the last 50 years. Our mission is to empower immigrants to build healthy families, to achieve greater economic success, and to contribute to thriving communities, all of which I know the city and the Office of Early Childhood are committed to. We do this work through our center-based and home-based childcare, our after-school and summer programs, our adult education, family services, and arts and cultural programs. I want to take this moment to recognize and thank all of our child care staff and educators across the city, but especially right here at BCNC. Every day they show up and give 110% taking care of and educating our children. And as you all know, the last 2 years has been incredibly challenging, and our staff have been incredibly resilient, and I know we are all grateful for their hard work. So I'm grateful that all of you are here. Thank you to elected officials, city and school officials, community members, and members of the BCNC community. Again, thank you for coming. And I am grateful that Mayor Michelle Wu is here, and it's my honor to now introduce her.
Good morning, everyone. 大家好，非常荣幸能够代表波士顿，然后今天和我们的 BCNC 和波士顿市政府的代表来庆祝波士顿现在的今天的消息，就是我们会有2000万的投资，让波士顿增加我们幼稚园和儿童3岁和4岁的位置。I'm so grateful to everyone for joining us here today. It is an incredible morning to celebrate one of the most important investments that any city can make in our future, in the next generation, and it is a bit of a journey that is quite personal for me as well. I'm so thankful to the many folks who are gathered here with us, representing our community partners, our Office of Early Childhood, our Boston Public Schools Universal Pre-K office, and our providers in the community who bring the care and love and education for our most important resource, our young people. My sons are 4 and 7 now, and I remember that first day when I got to drop them off at the same school for the first time in one place, one drop-off, when they both were enrolled at the Sumner School in Roslindale. It was life-changing. Up until that moment, it had been a chaotic, impossible juggle, trying to navigate systems of enrollment, then multiple pickups and drop-offs and all different lotteries and what to do if you didn't get in. It often feels like families are at the mercy of random numbers in our city when we have the resources and a legacy here of doing all that we can to innovate and pave the way for our youngest learners. Boston is home to the first public schools in America, and that includes the very first public elementary school. The Mather School in Dorchester is nearly 400 years old, and it represents our extraordinary commitment as a city centuries ago to recognizing that we all benefit when our young people have every resource that they need. Nearly 400 years ago, Boston gathered together, and the first 6 elementary school students at the Mather School were able to access a free education because the town of Dorchester collected a fee on cattle grazing that would then go to fund their new jewel of a school, one that we continue to celebrate today. But in nearly 400 years, we are not there yet as a society in recognizing that in some ways the most important investments are from birth to age 5 before children can enter our public school system. That is what Boston is trying to change. We know that every dollar invested in our youngest learners in universal pre-K and early education comes back tenfold for our community in the opportunities and the health and well-being and safety and stability of our communities. And that is why I want to make sure that families in Boston today, families who will make Boston their home, or those in my generation who are now growing their own families and looking to find their way for their little ones, don't have to be at the mercy of lottery systems that try to, as equitably as possible, allocate too few seats. We were lucky in that we ended up, when we didn't get a seat in the K0 lottery for 3-year-olds, enrolled in a parochial school, a private program near our house, an option that many don't have and that is out of reach financially for so many of our residents. Massachusetts is the second most expensive state in the country when it comes to childcare. And so many families with young children are forced to make impossible, unacceptable choices between quality care during some of the most formative years of their kids' lives, or making rent, buying groceries, or whether they can afford to stay in Boston at all. What we know is that this challenge has gotten even more intense through the pandemic. The number of early education centers serving children under the age of 5 in Boston has fallen as the challenges of running our child care centers have become more intense and disrupted by the many stressors from this pandemic. Geographically, too, this has exacerbated inequities, and some of the neighborhoods with the greatest number of young children have seen the greatest decline in available pre-K and early education seats. That's why I'm so excited here today in one of our first announcements with our new Office of Early Childhood and some of our city's strongest advocates for accessible quality childcare to announce a $20 million investment in early childhood education through the Boston Public Schools and the Boston UPK program and our early childhood office. Today we're reaffirming Boston's commitment to becoming the most family-friendly city in the country. This investment will expand our UPK program to include nearly 1,000 seats for 3- and 4-year-olds. Additionally, it will introduce a new, more effective financial model for grant funding and incorporate family child care providers into this network for the first time. As a mom and as a daughter of immigrants, I am especially excited about that last point. We came to this with a design group made up of community members, families, educators, child care providers, other stakeholders. And we'll be exploring how best to bring family child care providers directly into the UPK, Universal Pre-K network. Oftentimes, it is our family-based centers that can create more flexible schedules, that offer multilingual services and care for low-income and immigrant families, and help to diversify the care options across our city to better reflect and meet the needs of our residents. None of these exciting updates will change the UPK program's policy of bringing Boston families early childhood education options at no cost. This is just the latest in a series of many steps that we'll be taking to ensure that all of our youngest residents have access to high-quality, affordable early education and care. So applications are now open for Boston's UPK program, for community providers to join the UPK network, and for family care providers to join our design group. Programs across the city, including right here at the Acorn Center, at the Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center, will be opening up new classrooms as early as this fall. Today's investment is informed and inspired by the knowledge of how crucial the first few years of development in any child's life are. It's an investment in the more than 1 in 5 Boston families who have kids under the age of 5, and it's an investment in our city, in our collective future. Because when we meet the needs of our children, we are meeting the needs of Boston's immigrant communities and entrepreneurs, essential workers, parents, communities of color. And of course, we are lifting up our youngest residents, which yields the greatest return of all. So today is about recognizing our ability to do more for our littlest leaders and providing them with the foundation to grow up and transform what's possible for our city and all of our residents. Okay, otra vez en español. Buenos días. Hace 7 años, cuando empezamos a buscar opciones de cuidado de niño para mi hijo Blaze, y no teníamos muchas opciones. Cuando nos ganamos la lotería del sistema, tuvimos la suerte de poder inscribir a Blaze en un programa privado preescolar. Es una opción que muchas familias en Boston no pueden pagar. En Massachusetts, muchas familias con niños pequeños tienen que escoger entre un cuidado de calidad durante algunos de los años más formativos de la vida de sus hijos, o pagar la renta o comprar alimentos. Y cuando estas familias y niños salimos perdiendo todos. ¿Por qué? Cada dollar invertido en una educación infantil de calidad se traduce en un aumento 10 veces de los ingresos futuros y reduce los gastos de atención sanitaria y seguridad pública. Por eso, estoy tan emocionada de estar aquí con algunos de los más firmes defensores de la educación infantil accesible y de calidad de nuestra ciudad para anunciar una inversión de $20 millones en educación infantil a través de las escuelas públicas de Boston. Hoy reafirmamos el compromiso de Boston de convertirse en la ciudad más favorable a la familia del país. Esta inversión va a ampliar nuestro programa de educación infantil universal para incluir casi 1,000 cupos para niños de 3 y 4 años. Introducir un nuevo modelo financiero más eficaz e incorporar a los proveedores de cuidado infantil familiar a la red del sistema. Como madre e hija de inmigrantes, me entusiasma especialmente el último punto. Estamos creando horarios más flexibles y opciones de servicios multilingües para la familia de bajos ingresos y inmigrantes y ampliando la diversificación de las opciones de atención en nuestra ciudad para mejor reflejar y satisfacer las necesidades de las familias de Boston. Ninguna de estas emocionantes mejoras cambiará la política del sistema de ofrecer a las familias de Boston opciones de educación infantil de manera gratuita. Ya están abiertas las solicitudes para el Boston UPK y para que los proveedores de la comunidad se unan a la red UPK. Y los programas de toda la ciudad, incluyendo aquí mismo, en el Acorn Center, abrirán este otoño. La inversión que anunciamos hoy se basa y se inspira en el conocimiento de lo cruciales que son los primeros años de desarrollo. Porque cuando invertimos en satisfacer las necesidades de nuestros hijos, estamos invirtiendo en los inmigrantes y empresarios de Boston, en nuestros trabajadores, padres y comunidades de color. Y por supuesto, estamos invirtiendo en nuestros residentes más jóvenes, lo que produce el mayor beneficio de todos. Hoy se trata de reconocer nuestra capacidad para hacer más por nuestros líderes más pequeños y asegurar que tienen la base para crecer y transformar lo que es posible para nuestras ciudades y todos sus residentes. And I'm grateful to hand it over now to the director of our Office of Early Childhood, our senior advisor on all things early childhood, UPK, and for the youngest leaders in our city, Kristin McSwain.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Wu, and thank you to all of you who came out to join us for today's announcement. I see a lot of our child care providers in the audience, and as the mayor said, they've been doing really tremendous work over the last 2 years to make sure that our young people are safe and cared for, as are the staff with whom they work. So today my job is to move us through the wonderful group of women behind me who are actually doing this work on the ground every day across the city of Boston. children. And the first person that I want to introduce is TeeAra, who is the director of our Universal Pre-K program for the City of Boston. She's been here since 2019, really leading the implementation and helping us learn and grow along the way. So TeeAra.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kristin and BCNC, for having us, and certainly thank you, Mayor Wu. We are so excited and grateful for this continued investment in universal pre-K and in early education across the city of Boston. Not only are we creating more seats for both 3- and 4-year-olds across the city, but this is a model for the early education sector. The commitment that Boston is making to include a funding formula that provides additional stability for our community-based partners. And as we continue to develop a true high-quality mixed delivery system, this investment allows us to sustain the equitable salaries that our UPK community educators both need and deserve. And the BPS Early Childhood Department, alongside our UPK providers and our families, will continue to lead the way in developing curriculum that is available to all of our educators. It allows us to leverage resources so we can continue to expand our coaching and our professional development. And finally, and importantly, I am so overjoyed about the deeper connection that we are going to have in our investment in our family child care educators. Family child care has long been a vital part of providing flexibility and support to our Boston families. And we want our family child care educators to know that we see you, we hear you, and we're excited about this partnership. With family child care providers, we're going to continue to expand how UPK can be implemented in various settings while maintaining high quality. And with our FCCs as host sites, this mixed delivery model that we're building will ensure that we will maintain our family's choice and that there's no wrong door to a high-quality preschool experience. It demonstrates our mayor's commitment to early education and care. So again, I want to thank you, Mayor Wu. I want to thank Ben and the BCNC team for hosting, and I look forward to this work together. Thank you.
Thank you, TeeAra. One of the really important things to know about BCNC is they've been on this UPK journey with us since the very beginning. And Bernadette Davidson, who's behind me, helped start up the first pilot program in 2019 before we even launched UPK. And she's joined by her colleague, Cheng, who's been working for BCNC for the past 30 years, or maybe a little bit longer. So I'm going to introduce Kathy to tell you about their experience and how UPK has really benefited this community.
Mayor Wu, City Councilors, UPK Director TeeAra, UPK advisors and partners, BCNC team and families, community leaders, and honorable guests. Good morning and welcome. After decades of providing dual language early education to working immigrant families, in 2019, in partnership with the Boston Public School UPK program, BCNC began providing high-quality education and care through 2 UPK 3-year-old and 4-year-old classrooms. We have served 50 children using the focus and building block curriculums with dual language instructions in English and Chinese. We are excited to add on another classroom in the fall to serve an additional 20 3-year-old children with this funding. The UPK program at BCNC provides children from Asian and immigrant families with 6.5 hours of learning and care for 180 days, with an option for before and after school care. Many families express gratitude that they save over $13,000 a year. By expanding to provide before and after school care as well, families do not need to stress and worry about child care while trying to keep up with their work schedules. Many parents told me that one of the main reasons they choose the BCNC Universal Pre-K program is because we have bilingual and bicultural staffing. Maintaining the home language of Chinese while acquiring English is very important to Asian American families, immigrant families. Parents who are new immigrants found comfort in knowing that they could communicate with our staff in their native language so they could be engaged in their children's education and care. To have a great school, we must have great, highly trained, skilled, creative, professional, and passionate teachers. We are facing difficult workforce challenges like the rest of the nation. With this funding and the consistent support from the UPK team and our coach Marie, we are able to retain teachers with competitive salaries, building a strong professional development track, and provide rich learning classroom materials. We have teachers who show strong interest in becoming UPK teachers, and they are motivated to finish their degree in early education. This brings stability and quality to our classrooms and the center. The UPK Special Education team has also made a tremendous impact to our program with on-site resources to provide additional support for children in needs. The professional specialists are available for consultation, classroom observations, and meeting with families. We appreciate these valuable services to make services more accessible for children and families within a short turnaround period. Parents are receptive to services because they are on site. We're excited for the expansion, and thank you, Mayor Wu, for your investment in our children, families, and community. We look forward to our continual partnership with the UPK team. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Our next speaker represents one of our family child care programs. And as the mayor said, our family child care programs have already been providing really strong assets for our community over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Jenny Vicente runs a family child care program in the South End. She provides care starting at 6 a.m. in the morning for our families who are providing essential services in our hospitals, for those who are building the buildings that we live in every day, and they spend all day together providing that care in Spanish. Jenny is going to offer her comments today in Spanish, and she will be followed by a translator. Jenny?
Muy buenos días.
Hi, good morning.
Mi nombre es Jenny Vicente.
My name is Jenny Vicente.
Los niños son para mí una terapia,
The children for me are like a therapy
lo cual me hizo tomar la decisión
in which had made me take the decision
de abrir un family daycare
and to open a family daycare
en junio del 2008.
in June of 2008.
Me siento muy agradecida de Dios
I feel very grateful with God
por permitirme desarrollar
to allow me to develop
en este campo en el cual
in this field in which
he podido participar
I've been able to participate
en desarrollos profesionales
in professional developments
como Fondo para Emprendedoras
like in teachers
y el programa de UPK,
and the program of UPK,
de los Families Daycare.
of the family daycares.
También participo en el programa
I also participate in the program
Pailo de la Unión que pertenezco,
pilot of the union in which I belong,
lo cual abro mis puertas a las 5 a.m.
in which I open my doors at 5 a.m.
para ayudar a las familias
to help the families
que están programadas
that are programmed
en horas no regulares.
in not regular hours.
Mi metodología se basa
My method is based on
en reconocer que cada niño
and to acknowledge that each child
se desarrolla en su propio entorno.
develops in its own way.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. And now I want to return the mayor to the mic in case we have questions and answers from our press corps.
For anyone up here.
Mayor, how soon will the 20 million start being used?
So it's part of the investments in this year's budget. There are two funding sources. One is from the UPK Trust Fund on the city side, and then another is the funding from the Boston Public Schools that has, over the last few years, been used to match this. And so it can be deployed right away, and we're looking forward to, as you heard, even seeing some seats open this fall because of this investment.
Increasing the number of seats rather, 5,000. What does that represent in terms of percentage?
So I'll defer to Kristin, but my understanding is that traditionally we've had about 4,500 4-year-old seats.
Yes.
And then 3-year-old seats has been closer to the 3,200,
150, we're doubling that.
150, 50.
153-year-olds, we're doubling to 330.
We're doubling to 300. Sorry. I don't want to get this wrong.
So last year we had 150 3-year-old seats, and this year we're going over a little bit. I think it's like 330 3-year-old seats. Last year we had 600 4-year-old seats. We actually didn't fill all of them. The goal is to fill. So if you know a 4-year-old who is looking for a UPK seat, please send them our way. But we also expanded our seats to, I think it's 670 4-year-olds. So almost touching that 1,000.
But this
the
is
goal,
not counting the BPS.
it's not counting our Boston Public School seats as well. So if you add those on, it's a little bit, I think it's 2,600 BPS seats as well. So, and we're going to continue to expand, right? That's the goal, is to continue to expand while building high quality. So thank you.
So the way that I think about it is, on average, there's sort of an equivalent number of children at each age, and we know by measuring the average class size across each grade at Boston Public Schools that it's about 4,000 students per grade at that point. And so that's kind of the number of seats that we keep an eye on for where we need to head for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds as well. Across, again, the UPK seats, which can be based in community centers or family-based centers, and those that are coming directly through the Boston Public School system at a particular school.
Clarify, you can apply for this $20 million.
The question is, who can apply for the $20 million and for what? So some of this, as I understand, will go directly to the programs through the Boston Public Schools that are already creating seats, and some of it will be grants for providers.
Right. So the BPS just ran a competition for community-based centers to add UPK seats. We have an open competition right now for additional centers to apply to access additional seats as well. So we have both. And then for the family childcare, we're going to spend a year doing a design process with our stakeholders, so with family childcare providers, to come up with what does quality look like, how are we going to define that in this new kind of space. So that application is open as well.
Mayor, you mentioned that this would also create an avenue for early childcare providers to be able to access this network. What does that look like for someone like Jenny, who you heard from the Past Child Care Center? And why does bringing them in benefit them as well?
Okay, so just taking one kind of big step back in terms of an overview of the entire system, which is probably where I should have started. Boston has many different types of care provided from different organizations and institutions. So as you've heard through the Boston Public Schools, there are some seats starting from as young as age 3 and age 4. Some of those are based at school, at actual schools. So for example, at my child's school, my younger son was able to start in K1 at 4 years old. Some of those seats are community-based seats at centers like Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center, where the city helps provide the funding so that they can have a standard, consistent and matching curriculum, length of time, and salaries for the providers as well, just so that they are getting that same quality experience with the same standards at a private or community-based center as they would in the Boston Public Schools, and it's kind of one ecosystem. So far, that ecosystem has not included any direct public support or inclusion of home-based centers, those that operate out of homes like Ms. Vicente's. And so the goal is that we would, there are many families are accessing care through home-based family centers because they're closer to home, or as you heard, have more flexible hours, multilingual options, direct cultural connections to communities. And so bringing this set of providers into the ecosystem with the supports that we can offer for standardizing the hours and curriculum and salaries, providing that kind of universal experience across any avenue that families can access care, that will dramatically open up the number of seats that we are able to stand behind as a city and say are available and accessible to all of our families. Right now, you're kind of on your own in terms of if you don't get into the lottery through the Boston Public Schools or a UPK program, then it's, and I've been through this, right, hunting down the list of which providers exist where, who has openings for what age, and when have they been filled, or you just missed one and now you're on the wait list. And so we need to get into a more streamlined system overall. This is one step in that direction by bringing in some of the family-based providers. And so we'll be working with Jenny and many of her colleagues and fellow leaders in the space to help us think about what our family-based providers need to fully be part of this ecosystem too.
And those type of home-based providers, would it be part of the lottery? There would be additional options if you don't make it into the lottery.
That's right. So my dream one day, and I'm just going to say it because one day it will manifest, is that we would have a one-stop shop for enrollment. We are not there yet, and there are a couple complicating factors. One is that many of the seats that are available for low-income families require a separate and sometimes intense process to apply for subsidies directly from the state or for other sources, and so you can't just enroll on the spot. You need to know if you qualify, you need to have a couple weeks of working through that, and then you kind of come back into the process. But at the very least, we should be aiming for a one-stop shop, be it a website, be it a center that you could call in and get the information of which seats exist across the city from every single avenue for which ages in real time where the openings are. Because even if you know that a program exists and you happen to find it by looking on Google or driving by it in your community, it's still a whole process to see, well, for your child at that age, do they have a spot open, starting which month? And so creating that one-stop shop will be it will be life-changing for many families. This will get us closer by first increasing the number of seats and building that ecosystem. And then once that ecosystem is in place, coordinating everyone on how we get the information on availability across different grades.
But this funding is going to help those home-based programs have the same kind of curriculums and same kind of salaries. Is that something?
Eventually, yes. And we didn't mention it very, very much today, but there are a few key areas that we need to remove barriers. One is costs for families. As you heard, Massachusetts is the second most expensive in the country, a tremendous barrier. One is the hours, which may not match every family's needs, especially for essential workers or those who are working in more quote-unquote non-traditional hours. And then another is on the provider side, that these are the most hardworking and passionate workers in our entire city, disproportionately low income, and vast majority women and women of color. And so to really make that investment in our young people, we need to invest in those who are caring for our young people as well. And so part of the inclusion into any of Boston's UPK programming is to help equalize salaries too. So the question, and again, I'll invite up at least Kristin and TeeAra and anyone else too, where does this put us towards the goal of truly universal pre-K when some of these providers already exist and are in the community? So to me, universal pre-K means that any family living in this city, from the moment when someone finds out they're pregnant or is going to add a new baby or child to the family, doesn't have to have a moment of worry about what the processes might look like. That every single child will be guaranteed a seat starting at age 3 and transition into seats in the Boston Public Schools that are free, high quality, and with the same curriculum and hours as we offer in the Boston Public Schools. So that is both numbers kind of count of the availability, but it's also the supports around quality and professional development and supporting the providers to have the financial means to provide these seats. Boston has a mixed delivery model. We know that, for example, if tomorrow we were going to somehow be able to create 5,000 3-year-old seats solely through the Boston Public Schools and absorb every 3-year-old in the city through BPS, that would be incredibly destabilizing for childcare providers, given the staffing ratios, it is much more expensive to provide care for infants and younger babies than it is for older ones, given the ratios of staffing. And part of what you heard was that we're adopting a new funding model for the grants, so that rather than having funding follow each child individually, it will follow classrooms. Because you can't have fractions of a child care provider if you only have 3/4 of a classroom and those slots filled. You still have an entire set of costs to open that class and provide that high quality experience. And so we're starting to build some of that in. In terms of the numbers, what Kristin and TeeAra always say is that we don't have a quantity problem, we have a quality challenge. Is that right? Am I getting it right? Okay. I'm learning. And part of that is adding all the seats that do exist that might not be on the radar of families, because our providers are spending their heart and soul taking care of our little ones as opposed to marketing and doing the publicity, and again matching the curriculum and providing supports on professional development and hours. What did I miss?
Oh, that was great. That was great.
Jenny, ¿algunos otros palabras para esta el impacto para los
Sí. Bueno, por medio de la pandemia, fue un impacto grande para nosotras como proveedora.
When we had the pandemic, it was very difficult for us as a provider.
Pero teníamos que trabajar porque el mundo se paró, pero hubieron personas que no podían dejar de trabajar.
Although the world had stopped, there was people that still had to work, and we still had to provide for them.
Fue por la razón que yo tomé la decisión de entonces abrir mi programa en plena pandemia.
It was the reason and the purpose in which I had opened my program in between or right in the middle of the pandemic.
Porque pensé que los doctores necesitaban de nosotros.
Because I also had thought that the doctors also needed of us.
Los policías.
The police officers.
Y los bomberos.
The firemen.
Las personas que atienden los supermercados y las farmacias.
The people that attend supermarkets, pharmacies.
Y las personas que atienden las personas envejecientes.
And people that care for the elderly as well.
Fue una situación bien dura porque no sabíamos cómo nos podía tocar.
It was a very difficult situation because we didn't know how we were going to deal with.
Pero siempre los hijos de Dios, Él los cuida.
But always the children of God, God looks after.
Nunca tuve miedo a no hacer el trabajo.
I was never afraid to do my job.
Les recomiendo que no miedo a nada y les recomiendo al que pueda hacer este trabajo que lo haga porque es un trabajo muy divertido.
I ask for all to not fear and to also partake in these type of jobs because they're also very fun.
Y ayuda bastante a la comunidad.
And it helps a whole lot to the community.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias, Jenny. Es una inspiración y es nuestra responsabilidad de apoyar a su liderazgo y su servicio a la comunidad. One question. Absolutely. So the question is on whether there will be, whether there are any plans for Mandarin bilingual education in the Boston Public Schools, and I'll kind of comment on multilingual education in general. It is very, very important for us to offer native language instruction for our young people and their families. You heard the impact of what that means starting at the pre-K and early education level for families in this community connected to the Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center and the care that they offer bilingually in Mandarin and in Cantonese. The Quincy School in Chinatown does offer Mandarin language instruction, although it's not sort of full native language content, native language teaching of the content. As we continue to build out the facilities map and Green New Deal for schools and some of the shifts that move around with our new superintendent in place, we're very excited to continue exploring what this means and where programs could reside and what partnerships could help us expand that. But I think we are here today at this program because it has shown just how fundamental it is for families to have access to this.
And ask about the Success Link Summer Program. I hear there's, I guess, trouble trying to fill spots. Can you address why you think it may be hard to fill it out this summer? And are there any plans to try to promote more?
Yeah, so the Success Link program is Boston's youth summer jobs program. We traditionally have filled around 3,500 spots per year. In previous years, there was some virtual programming during the pandemic, and so we're getting back to full in-person programming now. We, this year, for the first time ever, funded 6,000 spots. So the goal was for full youth summer employment in Boston, and any young person who wanted a job would be able to come to the city and apply for one. We have already hit the same numbers as we have in previous years, and so now we're really pushing to get above and beyond that. Many of our programs that offer summer jobs at, for example, community centers or youth centers and city agencies have dramatically expanded how many teens and young people they are hosting this summer. We still have about, last I heard, which was about a week and a half ago, we still had about 2,500 seats left. We're working to simplify the process and make sure that our young people can get through the paperwork that's needed and documentation, but most of all, we need the word to spread that we still have room available, and we're pushing to get beyond what we have ever done before in the city.
Is that a deadline?
Yes, yeah, so the applications are still available and open. We're working with community organizations and just want to make sure that as we're healing from the pandemic and our young people have experienced so much, that everyone who wants an opportunity with a city youth summer job will have one. Thank you, everyone.
The mayor will be doing a meet and greet with the UPK students on the playground that you all are welcome to photograph, and then our tour of the facility will be closed to the press. Thank you.